Let's read some Glitch in the Matrix stories, part 165. My dead grandma saved my mom's life twice in one day. This is quite a long story, but I'll try to condense it as much as possible. So I am the eldest of 4 children, and I have always had older child syndrome, feeling responsible for my younger siblings, babysitting them, making sure they're okay, etc. At the time of this story, I was 13 years old, and my youngest sister wasn't born yet, so there were only 3 of us children living with my mom and dad, but my dad regularly worked overseas. My youngest brother, who was 8 at the time, woke up one day saying he didn't feel well. He couldn't explain what was wrong with him, but he said he felt a gut feeling and was clutching his stomach as though he was in a lot of pain. We thought it was a weird way to describe a stomach issue, as he usually used the words tummy or belly when describing his stomach, but this was brushed off, and since he never got sick, my mom decided to keep him home from school and stay home from work for the day to make sure that he was okay. At this point, I had left for school, so I'm going off what my 8-year-old brother told me later that day. When my brother and I had left school, my mom made him some tea to settle his stomach and put him back in bed. My brother never used to bring his cups or plates downstairs when he was done with them. Usually he would forget about them like young boys do, but this morning he drank his tea and for some unexplainable reason decided to bring the cup downstairs to the kitchen. He said he just had a feeling that he should. This is when he found my mom laying on the floor completely still. She was still awake but paralyzed and couldn't move. Her speech was slurred and she was holding onto her head as though trying to stop it from falling off her body. When my brother saw her, he said the pain just left his stomach instantly. He straight away knew to ring an ambulance and then rang my auntie, my mom's sister, who lived a couple of minutes down the road. I don't think we had ever explained to him what to do in an emergency like this, but somehow he just knew. It turned out that my mom had had a brain hemorrhage. Oh my God. We believe that the gut feeling my brother said he had was telling him something like this was going to happen. If my mom hadn't stayed off work to look after him, she would have been driving on the motorway rather than in the kitchen, so she would have definitely crashed, probably died, and taken some other people with her. Oh my God. That in itself is crazy enough, but it gets even crazier. Later that day, my auntie picked me and my other brother, who was 10 at the time, up from school, and we went up to the hospital. My dad was working overseas and wasn't able to get back until the next day. So when it was getting late, my auntie dropped us kids back at home alone, which was perfectly normal to do back then, and went to spend the night with my mom in the hospital. I spent the evening making dinner, looking after my brothers, and making sure everything was ready for school the next day. I got my brothers to sleep and then went to bed myself, but I was so worried about my mom and making sure that I had done everything to get us all ready for the next day that my mind was racing and I couldn't sleep. My bed was about a foot away from the wall with a huge window, and I had a long blackout curtains, so my bedroom was completely dark. After what seemed like a few hours of trying to sleep, I felt an ice-cold wind and the curtains fly up over my head as if the wind had caught under them, but as it is winter in the UK, my windows were closed. As I was opening my eyes, I could see that my bedroom was bright, but the lights were off. I started to roll over to face my window, thinking it would be a street lamp or something, but when I did, I felt something sit on the bottom of my bed. I looked over at my grandma, who had died 5 years before this, was looking at me, smiling. In that moment, I felt peace like I had never felt before and never have since. She hugged me and cupped my face in her hands, told me to stop worrying because my mom was going to be fine. Then she told me to lay down and go to sleep. I remember laying on my side, and then a second later, I felt her leave. I tried to look around, but my entire body was exhausted and I couldn't move. I woke up the next day with a knowing that everything would be okay, and I got my brothers and myself off to school. I spoke to my auntie later on, and she told me that mom had gone into emergency surgery the night before at about the same time that my grandma was with me. I never mentioned my grandma coming to me because I didn't think anyone would believe me / they would think I was dreaming. My mom got better and eventually came home, and life went on. I never forgot about that night, but it doesn't enter my mind as much as it used to, and I think over time I started to question if it was real or if it was just the ramblings of a scared young girl's mind. It really didn't matter because it made me feel better at the time, and the memory has given me a lot of strength throughout my life. Fast forward 21 years to 1 month ago. I've been going through a rough patch, recently gotten divorced and lost my job. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. So I've had to move back in with my parents for a little while until I get myself back on my feet. I was driving with my mom, and somehow we got to talking about when she was in the hospital and the emergency surgery that she had that night. She told me a story that she had never told anyone. She said when she was under, she had a dream that she was lying in bed and was surrounded by all the women in her family who had passed away, all her aunties and her grandmother, everyone except for her mom, my grandmother. They were chatting amongst themselves and telling her that it wasn't time for her to go yet, so she couldn't stay here. She asked her grandmother where her mom was, and she said, "She's just doing something important. She'll be along soon." After a little while, my grandma walked in and looked my mom dead in the eyes and sternly said, "I've just told Rosie that she has nothing to worry about because you're going to be fine. I'm not a liar and you're not going to turn me into one. So go back down there, get yourself better. You have a family to look after." Oh my God. When my mom woke up from the operation, the surgeon told her that they almost lost her but managed to get her heart going again mid-surgery, which is when my mom believes that she had the dream. I was in shock when she told me. I had to pull over and told my mom that my grandma had been to see me that night. We believe that is why she wasn't with the rest of the family around my mom's bedside, because she had to come see me first. Also, we believe that she was with my youngest brother when he had the gut feeling that morning and had to stay off of school. There have been many times since then that I have felt my grandma was with me, but this solidified my belief, and now I know that even though I'm going through a rough patch, everything is going to be okay. What a good story. Thank you so much for sharing.